Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, as someone that is face down creating, editing and publishing daily podcasts or writing articles, it often feels like hours, days, weeks and even months just fly by. So when I throw in the occasional overseas trip, it also feels that I don't stop or have a proper conversation with you guys listening, my audience. So today, I wanted to take my foot off the gas and have a little chat with you without any guests at all. A short and sweet solo show where we can spend just a few moments together. How does that sound? So, first of all, I had an email from a guy called Mark Kersey who says he listens to the show every day in the US and said, Neil, you've recently been to the Huawei conference in Rome. What did you think of the event? And are you on the Android or the Apple side of the fence? Oh man, Mark, you've asked me to answer a question that will divide my audience and could even lead to me alienating the other half of my audience too. But I'll try and answer you as honestly as I can here, because I have a slight problem that my daily routine is deeply ingrained into the Apple ecosystem. Everything from my early morning run, writing and recording interviews all happens seamlessly between my watch, MacBook and iPhone. So on paper, I'm an Apple fanboy, but I'm really not. And I just want my stuff to work with minimal hassle. But my big takeaway from the Huawei event is that they have a 5G phone coming out next year and they're spending $10 billion a year on research and development. And this has helped them leapfrog Apple and are now the number 2 smartphone manufacturer for the last 2 quarters. So when you throw in strategic partnerships, it seems to me at least it's only a matter of time before they overtake Samsung and become the number 1. So I walked away from the event thinking, what is their secret? Yes, they are spending $10 billion a year on research and development, but they're doing that to solve real problems and improve experiences. Alternatively, Apple are saying, here, have a bigger phone and we'll also give you animojis. Which leads me to think, did anyone ask for animojis? Does an animoji solve any problem? And has anyone used them more than once? I suspect you're going to answer no, because they're just a gimmick. Whereas Huawei seems to be saying, you hate your battery life, we get it, here is a 2-day battery life. And will allow you to reverse charge your phone and charge up your friend's iPhone on a night out. Again, solving real problems. So, I guess I'm somewhat of a hypocrite here because I'm passionate about using tech to solve real problems and avoid gimmicks. And I'm sat here with an iPhone that has a Barry Gibb emoji thing going on. But I am going to make a conscious effort to step outside of my comfort zone. And I hope that answers your question, Mark. And I hope everyone else listening on the Android side of the fence can forgive me. People are so passionate about mobile operating systems now. So much so, I think we should add it to the list of things not to talk about at dinner parties. Never mind politics and religion. Maybe we should add Apple versus Android debates too. Now, I also had an email from Michael Russell who asked, Neil, I struggle to keep up with your travel schedule. What has been your favourite gig this year? First of all, Michael, it is not as glamorous as it sounds. I don't buy into all that Insta life and all that jazz. It's all smoke and mirrors, but isn't everything in life? I mean, very often I fly into a country and I don't see much outside of a conference hall. But then equally I'm not complaining either, because it's such a privilege to chat to guests and tech leaders from all over the world, but most importantly, to get to meet listeners from all over the world too. So what I love more than anything is meeting up with a former guest or a listener to the show and just grabbing a coffee with them when I visit somewhere new. And that really is the essence of why I do this daily tech podcast. And actually prove that technology is working best when it brings people together. And yes, that's cheesy, but I'm a cheesy guy. Speaking of which, do we have any t-shirt makers in the house? Because I had a crazy idea the other day about creating a little cheeky momentum of 2018 by creating my own tour t-shirt. So to help you visualise, I want you to imagine a typical rock band t-shirt with the tour dates on the back. But I want the words, the Don't Be a Stranger 2018 tour, and then list the events that I've attended in Denver, Vegas, Nashville, San Francisco, London, Rome and Barcelona, because I thought it would be a good idea to pass down to the grandkids one day. Sorry, I digressed again. Because what I meant to say is I love everywhere that I've been, but I do also try and do something for myself during the stay. So I love Denver and how up and coming the state is, and also getting out to the Rockies and staying a night in the room where Stephen King wrote The Shining. Incredibly cool stuff. And equally, despite losing my case in Nashville and having to try and find some clothes in a place that just seems to sell 3 for the price of 2 cowboy boots, I love Nashville too. Again, it's because it's up and coming and there seems to be a real cool vibe about the place. I love how the gig economy and tech startups are really transforming entire cities, and Denver and Nashville are great examples of just that. And back here in the UK, it could be a pretty big week for me because I've just secured my own weekly tech column over at Tech HQ, where I'm incredibly humbled to be alongside some pretty big tech writers that I really respect, such as the fantastic Adrian Bridgewater. However, there is another potential gig that is incredibly exciting, but I don't want to jinx it, so I can't say too much just yet. But as someone that makes a living ghostwriting thought leadership articles for CEOs and tech leaders, my own profile often takes a back seat. So I'm hopeful that this week could change that. So please keep everything crossed for me, and I'll make sure you are the first to know if it comes off this big deal. In other news, as you know, I'm taking a class of virtual students through my podcasting launch program at podcastingmadesimple.info, where I'm looking after all the tech, the production and editing of a podcast, so my students can just focus on recording a conversation and then start 2019 with their own podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Now, you always get one student that races off in front, so I wanted to ask you all to send a little love to Kirsten Richard and Jeff Ickler, who are flying at the moment by getting their first 3 episodes of Getting Unstuck, Shift for Impact on iTunes and Spotify ahead of schedule in November 2018. It's just so great to see people creating their own show and bringing their vision to life. So I hope you guys continue to rock it in 2019. Remember, if you are listening, you don't need my help. That's cool. But if you are thinking of signing up to a podcast host such as Libsyn, remember to use the code TBW to get the rest of the month free and the following month too. But message me before you use it and I'll give you a few other tips too on how to get the most of that deal. Now, elsewhere, I also need to give a big thank you to Peter Winters, who also tweeted about my recent interview with Pedro Alves on, I think it was episode 571. Peter says, I believe Pedro was the first guest to directly ask you for money. I like that. Ask for what you want, Peter says. As for anyone else in artificial intelligence and machine learning, delivering real tools that will move any company forward in positive ways is a real challenge. But he said, it sounds like Opal has a good approach. So a big thank you to Peter, as always, my friend. Elsewhere on Twitter, I also had a lot of engagement and feedback about my recent interview with Bridget Perry from Adobe, who said on the show, UK companies are now acutely aware that they need to get closer to their customers and provide more personalised services if they want to remain relevant. And even Adobe tweeted this was a great conversation between Bridget Perry and the tech blog writer. The only reason I mention this is because I'm conscious I bombard you with daily tech podcasts, which probably means you only select the ones that appeal to you and you don't get to hear them all. But this is one to check out if you missed it. Finally, I had a message from Rob McCauley in Canada who asks, Neil, there are so many tech trends to watch in 2019 out there, but what excites you the most? So for me personally, Rob, the commercial rollout of 5G in 2019 is a real game-changer moment, every bit as big as the moment when iPhones first arrived on the scene around 11 years ago. The beginning of a gigabyte society, combined with the wealth of IoT sensors, could rocket the progress of smart cities and actually transform lives as we know it. And I also think it'll be impossible, of course, to avoid blockchain and the term decentralized apps in 2019. But what I really want to see and what really excites me is seeing more real-world adoption, more real-world use cases, and not just another project built on future promises. And I'm genuinely hopeful that that's going to happen in 2019. I also think we're going to see more applications that are going to enable voice interaction, opening up new opportunities around voice interaction, including virtual assistant, voice recognition, voice shopping, and so much more. And if this does happen, being on page 1 of Google won't mean much if your site is invisible to voice search. So I'm intrigued how that's going to happen and how businesses are going to adapt to this new frontier of voice search. So I think businesses will need to prepare for Web 3.0. And yes, keeping up with the latest tech trends can be exhausting for business leaders in any industry. And in 2018 alone, headlines have been dominated by blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so many other big buzzwords. And to further complicate matters, many of these transformative technologies are actually paving the way for a new digital era, which is often referred to as Web 3.0. And the internet has evolved dramatically since Tim Berners-Lee's vision of the World Wide Web back in 1989. During those early Web 1.0 days, we just had the ability to create content and distribute to global audiences was no longer restricted to a handful of powerful publishing companies. And that was just the beginning. These early steps mainly consisted of static websites connected by hyperlinks. And yeah, we began consuming content, But a dial-up connection meant that we just had to wait a little bit longer before we had that truly interactive internet that we all love now. By contrast, the arrival of high-speed internet connections ushered in a new era of social media and interaction. But before we look to the future, we need to learn from our internet history. We need to understand our past and where we are right now. For example, YouTube is approaching 2 billion users. There are 400 million blogs and 300,000 podcasts out there alone. And each and every one of us can broadcast our authentic voice and share our ideas with the global community from the smartphone that sits in our pocket. But this is just the beginning. Suddenly our lifestyle and business landscape look completely different. Alibaba doesn't carry stock, Uber doesn't own any cars, and Airbnb doesn't own any real estate. The sharing economy has forced many businesses to disrupt themselves before a competitor comes and does it for them. But what transformative changes will Web 3.0 bring? And what can companies do to prepare and avoid getting left behind? These are the big questions. Because we can all use our voice to manage our home lighting, heating and entertainment. And the ubiquitous Internet of Things is filling our homes with devices that are all permanently connected to the Internet. So for everyone listening, do you remember when your home network consisted of just a couple of laptops, a tablet and maybe a smartphone? Whereas now you can add toasters, refrigerators, TVs, cookers, slow cookers, thermostats and light switches. And this list is continuously growing of these always connected devices. But the question I'm asking is, what does this mean for businesses? Because as the lines between B2C and B2B are beginning to blur, millennials and Gen Z workers are taking their lifestyle expectations into corporate environments and asking why they cannot enjoy that same seamless experience. Welcome to the world where technology is bringing us all closer together. And one of the biggest challenges facing businesses at the moment is finding a unified way to make sense of this deluge of data across a myriad of devices and applications. And this is where Web 3.0 and the impending arrival of the semantic web could provide another game-changing moment. But it's not until we look back and join up the dots that we can see the digital landscape has evolved from the creation of documents in Web 1.0 to the focus on data in Web 3.0. And the creation of a new framework that's fit for a digital age where data can be seamlessly shared and reused across applications, enterprise and community boundaries from a myriad of devices. That is our next destination. And the days of Googling something and wading through search results to find the information that you need is going to disappear sooner than many realise. Once users experience personalised results on the right device at the right time, that's going to become the standard. But what if your business cannot meet this new standard? And if we're honest, we're already experiencing certain elements of this now. Our smartphones can increase efficiency and productivity by seamlessly providing traffic information, scheduling meetings, and even warm our home from the moment we leave the office. So when automatic recommendations become the norm, businesses must step up and meet this new standard, or run the risk of appearing irrelevant and getting left behind. So sorry for the long-winded case of mansplaining there, but if you're going to ask the question, the least I can do is offer a glimpse into my head just for a few moments. But these are just my thoughts, these are my opinions. And there's a good chance that you might have an alternative viewpoint. But hey, that's cool too. The reason I started this podcast was to learn from you all too, as you have insights and unique experiences that I don't. But together, maybe, just maybe, we can make sense of it all. So as always, you can reach me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, and remember all my podcast episodes and a method of leaving me a virtual voicemail is available over at techblogwriter.co.uk. Finally, if you want to join my podcast launch program where you can record conversations and I edit and use a little tech magic to get you on iTunes and Spotify, just drop by podcastingmadesimple.info. But with another crazy week over, I'm going to have an afternoon playing video games now, and I think I've earned a little downtime. But before I do sign off, a special thank you today goes out to my new friend, Paul Lipscomb. And he's based in London, here in the UK. He's actually essentially a new friend that I made when over at the Huawei conference. Because I'll let you into a little secret, I'm not a big fan of forced networking or forced mingling, but I really do enjoy meeting people and getting to know them in a real sense. And there are a few things in this life that are cooler than that. So I do hope Paul is achieving success with Hamburg in his football manager season. And rather than ramble on anymore, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening today and say until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.